What's up, guys? Welcome back to part 2 of tips for anesthesia school. So in part 1 here, I talked about clinical tips, just some pearls, how to do well, some resources, and just things that help me get through anesthesia school. Today, I want to talk about just some study tips and some study habits that may help you. I realize we're all different learners. Some of us are visual learners, some of us are audible learners. We all do things very differently. I would say I was more of a visual learner. I was one that I liked repetition. I would literally sometimes just talk to myself to just really get it in my head. And I was also one that really had to understand the physiology. I really had to understand the why behind something. So I personally would draw a lot of things out. I would draw pictures to understand how it worked. So I get it, we're all different. So if my tips don't help for you, no big deal. I just am hoping that maybe I can be an encouragement and help somebody out. So let's get started. Okay, so my first tip, and I would honestly probably say looking back, one of the most important things to get good at as a student is time management. So at this point, if you're in school, just the reality is you've probably had to give up a lot of your personal life. You probably can't hang out with your friends as much. You probably don't watch TV anymore or play PlayStation or Xbox. I remember for me, like me and my husband, we loved watching TV. I'd watch Grey's Anatomy. I had all my little shows that I would watch before. Once school started, I didn't do any of that. I remember texting one of my girlfriends who was a couple years ahead of me and, as a Srna, and I was like, dude, I miss sitting and watching a dumb episode of Grey's Anatomy. But I never let myself watch it because I had things to do. So time management is super important. Kind of like what I said in my first video is have a plan. So something that really helped me was to have a personal planner. So I honestly, I have all my personal planners from like the last 10 years. I am such a big fan of a personal planner. And I like to use the hard ones, write it down. I'm not a on your phone kind of person. But I just wanted to show you guys. Okay, so this is my planner from my first year. And so I would use my monthly planner. I'd write everything out, but I wanted to show you guys kind of like how I would plan out my week. So I'm trying to find a good example. So here we go. And I started color coordinating because it helped me a lot. So I'm going to get a video and show you guys this, but literally every day I would write down my classes, what I had to study, and I would write down allotted times for each subject, for each thing I had to study, because I knew I had so much to learn and so much to study. I could get so distracted. I could literally sit and study one subject for so long. So I would literally write down, and then I would have sticky notes. If I had quizzes to do, I'd write out quizzes. I had to do, write an article, or I had to read a certain amount of chapters. I would have all my to-do lists, and then I would try to allot it on each day. And then I would maybe, if I did have anything personal, so like someone's birthday I wanted to go to or something really important, I would make sure I would write that in my planner with a different color and make sure I really gave myself a time limit. So everything was blocked out in times. Even like hanging out with my husband, I literally had written down, and here I have written girls' night, like I gave myself small periods of time, but I had every hour planned. So you might not care to micromanage your day as much as I did, or your week as much as I did, but have a plan, get organized. Time management is super, super important with anesthesia school. Another tip I have is don't get sucked into using like 5 different textbooks. So all of us at different schools are gonna have different professors that use different resources. Stick to the reading material they give you, and then if you wanna supplement with like study guides, supplement with practice questions, supplement with different ways that people will tie in concepts you've learned. But like taking the time to read multiple textbooks on the same subject, you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot. In my experience, I barely had time to read the text that was assigned. Like it was so much work, like the amount of material they gave you to read. It was a lot. So stick to what they assign you. Now, I will tell you a resource that was extremely helpful to me was this book by Lippincott, was Clinical Review of Clinical Anesthesia. And it's all practice questions. And for my school, the teachers like to use a lot of these questions, or at least change the words a little bit, but the same, like they're very good clinical, and they give you big, long, rational reasons for why. And a lot of the textbooks you use will actually have a study guide question book for it. Find that book and use that. That'll help you a ton. I remember my pediatric class, same thing. I got the question book that went along with my textbook, and I made sure if I did nothing else, I read my assigned chapter and I did practice questions to go along with that, because it really helped me realize if I understood the context of what they were trying to teach me. I obviously took really good notes during lecture. If they had PowerPoints, I'd write everything down. But at the end of the day, at least a lot of my professors, they got a lot of their questions from the textbook. And having those questions were super, super helpful. And then another tip is ask your upperclassmen for study guides, not cheat sheets, not like test questions. I don't condone that at all, but find study guides. You know, your upperclassmen have been through this. What were some study tips for each different kind of professor? Did they like to ask questions directly from the text? Did they like to write their own questions? Did they get their questions from these? Because a lot of times they do. So make friends with your upperclassmen. Ask them. Be a learner. The best way to succeed is to find someone else who succeeded before you and figure out what they did to be successful. And then another tip I would have for you is use whatever. So for us, my school used Apex as they started using it. They used it for classes, but also just to start helping you for boards. Some people use Valley. I think there's some other resources, but literally we stuck to just Apex. And again, I would encourage you, stick to the one thing that your school promotes and do it really well. It was super helpful to me, especially with like regional anesthesia, cardiac, neuro. They give you really good like pictures and visualizations and break it down clinically really simple. And then they have a ton of practice questions. Do all of the practice tests, you're going to have to pass a lot of these tests towards the end of your school. And a lot of times we'll use Apex tests or other Valley tests or whatever your resource is. So really take a lot of time and do well in those. And then last but not least, kind of talking to what I was saying, if you're a visual learner, draw it all out. So this is one of my notebooks I would use, and I just, for simple things like, okay, I wanted to understand the anesthesia machine really good. I color coordinated, wrote down the things I really needed to know. For fluid management and blood management, I would write down all of my equations and have really important things right here. Is very visual. And then, draw everything out. For me, it was super helpful to see different just pearls and tips that helped me understand really what was going on, and just have it in one place that I could pull through. Like, this is cardiac. Here I have fluid management. Here I had literally, it was everything about my anesthesia machine, talking about soda lime and Amsorb and all the different, because they're going to ask you so many questions for this. Clinically, you don't need to know all the in-depth information, but you do for school. So write it down, have it all in one place. It's super accessible. And if you're a visual learner, draw it out. That is super helpful. So one other thing I'd also say, create a way for you to stay mentally sane. So it is a long process. Like I said before, it is not short, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So find ways to stay mentally healthy. Give yourself time limits for studying, but you also need to find things that are going to help you just mentally stay sane. Go to the gym for a short period of time. Go outside, go read something. For me, when I would, right after an exam, I had been studying, my mind was just spent. I would go home and I would let myself watch one episode of a show, so it wasn't very often. It wasn't during the week or on the weekends. It was one episode after every exam I took. I just kind of gave myself a little reprieve. Usually would go to bed. I always had this specific bottle of champagne that I liked. It's a $10 bottle of champagne. For every exam I would pass, I would come home. My husband would turn on music. We would have a dance party, and then I would get my champagne. I would walk to bed. I would get comfy, and I would watch an episode. It was just kind of like every little step matters, but it's a long process. So celebrate your small victories, recover, you know, take a little me time. You know, sometimes that was a bath for me or whatever, but then get back after it, hustle. You guys can do this. It is 3 years, some a little longer, but at the end of the day, you guys are gonna be a Srna. You guys are going to be awesome. You're gonna love your career. You guys got this. If you have any questions, please hit me up, comment below. Let me know some study tips that help you. And if you have any questions, head over to my Instagram. I do a lot of just daily life content talking about my work life, my home life, my personal life. I just love to share it with you guys because at the end of the day, being a Srna, it's not just about work, it's about the lifestyle that you're creating for yourself. So make sure you subscribe to this channel if you like the content, and thank you so much for being here, guys. Until next time, see you later.